The Democratic National Convention kicks off today in Chicago. Kamala Harris will be making history as the first Black woman and first Asian American to lead a major party into a U.S. election. Since she won the nomination, Harris and her running mate, Tim Walz, have embarked on a tour of battleground states. Joining us now are two delegates from two of those swing states. Kenneth Budge is the mayor of Bisbee, Arizona, about 20 kilometers north of the Mexican border. And Christopher Walton is the former chairman of the Democratic Party of Milwaukee County in Wisconsin. They're both in Chicago for the convention. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ken, let's start with you. Bisbee is a small town near the border, about a 2-hour drive from Tucson. What issues are most important to your constituents?
Well, the most important issues right now are we would like some sort of immigration reform and get this off the table. We believe that, let me just put it this way. As a mayor, we're problem solvers. And as problem solvers, we believe that you come to the middle and make something happen. And right now, the federal government is not doing anything. And in fact, they're trying to use this as a campaign issue. I believe that the Vice President Harris believes that we must have a secure border and wants to fix our broken immigration system, where Donald Trump and the Republicans have doing nothing but campaigning off of it, and actually vetoed the chance that we had to get a good legislation done that was bipartisan.
How do you see the immigration issue playing out in your town?
Well, it's come way down now. I mean, back many months ago, there were a lot of street releases in my town and my next door neighbor town, which is Douglas, Arizona. But since President Biden has put in the restrictions, basically since May, there has not been any more street releases at all. And it's calmed down quite a bit.
Well, Kamala Harris has been criticized by the Republican Party for her role in the migrant crisis at the U.S.-Mexican border. As mayor of a border town, how do you think she has done?
What she did was actually very, very good, because we saw the first group of migrants wanting to come up from Central America. That's what she was tasked with, was the three nations there. She raised a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars that helped stem that flow. But then all of a sudden, what happened? Then we got Venezuela, we've got Cuba, China, all that started coming up. So that really wasn't part of her situation. But what she did helped us in the interim for a little while. But the flow still just increased from different countries.
Christopher, what issues are most important to voters who you talk to in Wisconsin?
Finding a good job. That's the most important thing in Wisconsin. I would say finding a job, making sure our environment is clean. You know, we are right here on the Great Lakes that we share with Canada, making sure that water is clean for everybody in generations to come, and really just making sure that everybody is treated equally. No matter who you are, no matter what you look like, no matter who you love, making sure everybody gets a fair shot and has an opportunity to really enjoy being an American.
What are you hearing specifically from swing voters or independent voters?
From swing voters and independent voters, they really just want to know who is going to actually get something done. You know, we have a lot of always going back and forth about whether or not, we can do this, we can do that, whether people are actually energized, they're interested in getting things fixed in regards to our infrastructure, in regards to trying to combat climate change. They just want somebody who they can listen to, they can believe in, and who can get something done. We've had a lot of that in Wisconsin with our governor, but we've had our constantly obstructionist state legislature, was only created from gerrymandering. But now that map has been fixed, we're actually looking at a chance where we can run the table and actually get the majority in the state House of Representatives because of a fair map. So somebody, again, willing to put in just that equal, fair opportunity.
Christopher, in 2016, Donald Trump won Wisconsin by less than a percentage point, and 4 years later, President Joe Biden won by less than a percentage point. What does Kamala Harris have to do to keep Wisconsin?
She's got to do what she's actually been doing. She's been doing an amazing job coming to Milwaukee, coming to Madison, coming to La Crosse, all across Wisconsin. I think Governor Walz definitely helps. He's been an amazing candidate, and the people of Wisconsin have definitely fallen in love with him. I think being actively engaged and continuing to do that, and also pushing these policies. The fact that she's pushing a $6,000 tax credit for newborn children to help continue to fight the push that they had to end childhood poverty. You know, when they put that childhood tax credit in back when President Biden and Vice President Harris first came in, we cut black child poverty in half in 1 year. So imagine what we can do if we could put policies like that back in place.
Can Joe Biden won Arizona in 2020, but by a slim margin? And now the New York Times national poll aggregator shows Trump leading in Arizona. What does Kamala Harris have to do to turn those polls around?
Well, again, she's doing what she needs to do. She has come to Phoenix. She's letting us know that the MAGA Republicans are just not going to support us. I mean, just to give you an example, since President Biden's been in, our little towns received $21 million in grants. That just never happened. We have a 100-year-old infrastructure in our town. We're an old mining town. And we need every bit of that to try to save our drainage ways and our bridges and other things that are going on. So those types of things have to continue, or else we're just, we just can't keep up.
Mm-hmm. Christopher, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are planning a rally tomorrow in your home city of Milwaukee. Walz is from Minnesota, your next door neighbor. How popular is he as a VP choice in Wisconsin?
He's very popular. It's very, very popular. Can't say we don't love our neighbors around here in the Midwest, but we definitely do. No, he's been very popular, especially out in western Wisconsin, where a lot of those swing voters that went for President Obama both times, then went to Donald Trump. He is making immediate connections over there because he's one of us. He understands. You know, he served in the National Guard. He was a football coach. He was a teacher. You know, this is who we are. This is that stock that makes us the Midwest. And so I think he's definitely translating very well in Wisconsin. And luckily, we have Vice President Harris, who actually spent some of her childhood years here in Wisconsin. So we kind of got a hometown ticket here. So we're going to be very happy with this.
Ken, Barack Obama, the Clintons, and Joe Biden are all speaking at the convention, and of course, eventually Kamala Harris. What are you most looking forward to seeing this week in Chicago?
Well, let's just say the excitement here is unbelievable. It's all starting today. Sure, we'll just keep ramping up, and you'll see that they'll really get to know her. They'll understand the important issues that are in front of us and how she plans to solve those. And it's just a sea of change that we are seeing here, and we're all very excited about it.
It's been a wild campaign so far. What pitfalls, Ken, do you think exist for the Democrats in the next few months before November 5th?
Well, it's basically just trying to overcome the lies. I mean, what we get from the other side is just a bunch of hyperbole that doesn't really mean anything, and actually most of it's untrue. And so we've got to just stick together as a unified force and show the country that we are on the right path, and Kamala will show us that path and lead us down the road to victory.
Christopher, I'm going to ask you to stay on the line for a moment, but Ken, I understand you have to leave to go and get accreditation by 8 a.m. your time. So I want to thank you so much for your time today.
Yes, they're being very hard on us as far as picking up our credentials. So, yeah, I appreciate the time you have given us, and best of luck to Wisconsin and everybody else you're going to have on today.
Thanks so much, Christopher. Or Kenneth. Kenneth Budge is, Kenneth Budge is the mayor of Bisbee and a delegate from Arizona. Christopher, what are you most looking forward to this week?
Oh, that's probably the hardest question I've had this week so far. I'm a student of politics. I love politics. I love history. And I've been watching these conventions now since about the year 2000. So I'm looking forward to the speeches. I can't wait to hear President Biden. I can't wait to hear Secretary Clinton and Presidents Clinton and President Obama and former First Lady Obama. I can't wait to see the balloon drop. I can't wait to hear Governor Walz. I can't wait to actually get a chance to see the woman I believe will be the first black woman to be president of the United States give her acceptance speech. I can't wait just to see the other delegates. I am just super, super excited. Someone asked me earlier, how do I feel? How does this event make me feel? And I'm like, this kind of feels like Christmas Eve, the Super Bowl, and a family reunion all in one.
You campaigned for Barack Obama when he first ran for president. What will it mean to you if Kamala Harris wins?
For me, it will be. I felt it very personally when President Obama was elected, because I could see myself. We can do this. That wall has been dropped. We can jump over it. We can do what we need to do to actually become president. Everybody has the right to be president. And in 2016, that wall seemed to build up a little bit more when, women didn't seem like they had the right, even though they have the right, they still hit that glass ceiling. For me, getting to see Kamala Harris become the president of the United States means, yeah, we can get through that glass ceiling. My niece Charm, who just turned 5, will grow up in a world where a woman who she will look a lot like when she grows up can be the president of the United States. And I am absolutely just fascinated with this idea that everybody should get a turn. Everybody deserves fairness.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and enjoy your time in Chicago this week.
Thank you so much.
Christopher Walton is the former chairman of the Democratic Party of Milwaukee County and a delegate from Wisconsin. We reached him and Mayor Ken Budge in Chicago, where the Democratic National Convention starts today. Dana Milbank is a columnist for the Washington Post and is in Chicago to cover the convention. He joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Dana, you recently went to a Harris-Walz rally in Philadelphia. What struck you about that rally?
Well, certainly the energy. The Biden campaign had, Democrats were there for him because he was the nominee, but nobody was really excited about it, particularly since that disastrous debate performance. But it was like a switch was flipped, and just the intense crowds, the large crowds that you had previously associated only with the Trump campaign, and the energy, the singing and the dancing, and just the decibel level of the crowd was something very different. And you're seeing this all across the country. These huge crowds, 10,000 and more people, traffic jams to get out there, and I think all of this really is kind of that pent-up energy. Democrats were pretty depressed, very worried about Donald Trump, but feeling like he was going to really have the advantage. And suddenly everything has changed. It's going to be a close race, just as it was going to be before, but it does, at least at this moment, feel like the Democrats have the advantage.
Well, the Harris-Walz campaign certainly has a lot of momentum, and Harris has raised record-breaking amounts of money. What has to happen at the convention this week to keep that momentum going?
Well, I don't think it's that much of a heavy lift. I mean, you're not being challenged at the convention. You're just presenting the story that you want to present. I suppose the risk is that the protesters here who are here in Chicago, particularly the Gaza protesters, will steal the limelight. There may be some disruption within the convention from a small number of disaffected delegates on the Gaza issue and such things. So I think that's the largest risk. But the Harris-Walz ticket has been pretty much firing on all cylinders here. So, conventions are really the easy part. The harder part will be the debates and the unknown things that occur on the campaign trail. Does something happen with the economy? Does something happen with a war overseas? Those will be the challenges. But at the moment, the Democrats appear to be in the catbird seat.
Well, as you mentioned, pro-Palestinian protesters are planning to march in Chicago this week, calling for an end to the war in Gaza. How divisive is this issue within the Democratic Party?
Well, I think it's a lot less divisive than the scene would suggest. What we saw first on college campuses, and I suspect what you'll see here in Chicago. It's a relatively small number of young people who are not necessarily attached to the Democratic Party to start with. So if you look at polls, if you look at focus groups, it's really not an issue that's registering among your typical Democratic voters. It's also, a bit of a switch because Harris has a somewhat nuanced difference of position, also pro-Israel, but it seems more sympathetic to the Palestinian plight. So that has definitely taken a lot of wind out of the sails of the protesters.
There's a lot of talk about the parallels between this convention and the Democratic Convention in 1968 in Chicago. That year, another incumbent president, Lyndon B. Johnson, also stepped aside in the months before the election. And during the convention, Chicago police responded to anti-Vietnam War protests with violence. What can Democrats learn from 1968?
Well, look, this isn't 1968. I mean, really the only similarity is they happen to be back here in Chicago. The party is much more unified than it was at that time. And as I was discussing a moment ago, what they're protesting about is not a war in which American troops are engaged and dying. It's not an issue that is gripping the American public the way it was before. And also, it seemed, I think, something in the last 50 whatever years it has been, they're a little bit better at handling the demonstration. So I don't think there's a risk of a repeat of Chicago 68. It's just, does it become a bit of a blemish on the main programming at the convention?
There's been commentary that the Trump campaign is struggling to figure out how to counter Kamala Harris. What do you make of their efforts so far?
Well, it's not been going well. The entire Trump campaign was based on running against Joe Biden, against Sleepy Joe. They'd been investigating him, not coming up with much, but for a couple of years, they were all set to denounce all of his policies, particularly on the border and on inflation, and above all, just to suggest that he's too old for the job. And that was a pretty easy argument to make because Americans generally were the impression that, they kind of like Joe Biden, but he is too old for the job. But all of that is out the window now, and Trump has really had a very difficult time settling on what his argument is going to be. I mean, here he is talking about her crowd size. Here he is talking about her looks and suggesting that he's a better looking person than she is. And then he keeps going back to attacking Joe Biden being senile and doddering. So it seems like he just can't decide what to focus on, and because the game plan was entirely different. And with only 80 or so days to go until the election, there's not a lot of time to readjust. But
this is still a close race, according to the poll. So what do you think Kamala needs to say to appeal to swing voters and independent voters when she takes the stage this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a close election. It always was going to be, and it remains that way. And the polls have shifted a point or two in her direction. You can't read too much into that because it's going to come down to the turnout in just a few states. But I think she needs to be doing what she's been doing in her stump speech. I don't believe all of this that the Republicans are trying to induce her to come out with some huge policy agenda. You got a pretty good idea of what the policy agenda is, looking at what the things Biden has accomplished. So I think more of the same. I think what she's been doing in her stump speech is delivering a tight and succinct indictment, if you will, of Donald Trump, and I think that's what she's got to do again.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dana, for joining us today.
Sure, my pleasure.
Dana Milbank is a columnist for The Washington Post and is in Chicago to cover the convention.